everyone. My name is Bhavya Suri, and I am the health educator for the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. Before we start the webinar, I'd like to take a minute of your time and introduce this year's National MS Education and Awareness Month Toolkit. The theme for 2023 is MS in Today's World. If you are currently subscribed to our quarterly MS Focus magazine, then please be on the lookout to receive your 2023 toolkit within the next few days, if you haven't already received it. If you are not subscribed with us, please respond to your registration or reminder email of this webinar, and we can add you to our mailing list. This toolkit has different activities such as checklists and worksheets that can assist in keeping you grounded, but also finding new ways to prepare you for the upcoming future of MS. There are topics in here to guide you in your personal journey of living with MS, like advice featuring one of our speakers of this month's webinar, Dr. Werfel, healthcare tips such as advocating for yourself or the latest updates on FDA-approved treatments, and how to navigate within your MS community. To make this toolkit and today's webinar possible, I would like to thank our sponsors. Thank you all for your time and enjoy this webinar.
Good evening, and welcome to this National MS Education and Awareness Month conference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, and made possible with support from Biogen, Genentech, EMD Serono, Sanofi, Viatris, Sandoz, and Bristol Myers Squibb. I'm your host, Deborah Foreman, the Educational Programs Coordinator for MS Focus, and I'm joined by Cherie Binns, who's not only our patient healthcare liaison, but is also an MS certified registered nurse. Tonight, Cherie, who was diagnosed with MS in 1994, will be introducing and moderating our panel of extraordinary women who have each in their own way repeatedly given back to the MS community. Cherie, I'm going to turn this over to you so you can introduce everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. You're going to hear some journeys tonight that are inspirational and motivational. There are several people here on the screen that are going to help you kind of imagine or dream something new and creative and helpful to your MS communities. I'm going to give each of them a moment to sort of introduce themselves, where they are, and what their basic focus is on giving back to the MS community. For those of you that missed it, I'm Cherie Binns. I live in Rhode Island, about a mile away from the open Atlantic. Gorgeous, gorgeous place. I have been a nurse now for 50 years and became an MS certified nurse in 2003 after I got to know this community. The MS Foundation really helped me to turn my life around and see the possibilities of moving beyond a career or moving beyond a place where I was on disability and kind of take back my life again and give back to the community. I have done some support groups. I've done some fundraising, not real recently. Certainly some advocacy, and I've been involved in MS research as well on several different levels. So I'm going to ask Helen to introduce herself.
Okay, I'm Helen Bisdorf. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was diagnosed with MS when I was traveling across the country with a friend of mine. And as we got towards Las Vegas, my eyesight, I thought, wow, we're going through the desert and it's a little cloudy. But I found out later when we got to the West Coast and I saw Super Dr. Super that it was probably something that I needed to go home right away for. And then I was diagnosed with optic neuritis and eventually MS. And that was in 2001. So I've had MS for 22 years, and I'm doing well thanks to all the things that have come through the pipeline and all the various therapies that are out there. So I work right now with 3 self-help groups for MS. We get together every month pre-COVID, so we haven't gotten back together in person because it's an in-person thing. And we talk about it more as an educational, and I say a covert support group, because we have dinners that are sponsored by the various pharma companies so that people get good information from a variety of good sources. But the dinners are family style, so there's usually 8 to 10 people around the table, and they talk about doctors that are good, and people are very uplifted when they leave, and we hug everybody. So haven't gotten the courage to start that yet since COVID back up, but people have been emailing me. So we will probably within the next few months start it up, and we've been able to reach about 200 people a month that have MS. But the thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands is it didn't start with 200 people. It started with 7 people around a table, and it kept growing and growing. And then, you know, why don't you do a lunch group? And so we added a lunch group. And then why don't you start a newly diagnosed group? So we started a newly diagnosed group. So it starts from a little seed and then grows into something much bigger than I thought. So then once we have those people, I started fundraising and got a lot of the volunteers from that group of people that would come to our dinners, and we put on a fashion show every year. So, the volunteers, the models, the silent auction items came from people that were within those groups for the most part. And, we raised money together for a cause. And then I also do advocacy, both in the state of Ohio and nationally. And we work for things and priorities within policies that are good for people with MS. So it just depends on whether it's funding or, whether we want to, here in Ohio, work on trying to get a grant for people that have MS that they can, redo something in their homes that they need help with, whatever. So it all starts with just a little thing, and then try to get the people around you involved. And I think that some of the other people that are involved in this also will say the same thing.
Thank you, Helen. Traci.
Hi, my name's Traci Ceras, and I live in New Jersey. I do more of the fundraising. I actually started maybe about 5 years ago. By the way, I've been diagnosed when I was 21, so I've had it for over 25 years. So what happened was I needed a scooter and I couldn't afford it. So I reached out to the foundation and they actually helped me out. So I wanted to give back, but I couldn't financially. So I figured, let me see if I can fundraise. So I thought, okay, there's community day. I want to do a small little table with about 5 baskets and see what I can raise. I ended up getting so many donations that I had enough for about I probably had over 100 prizes. So an American Legion donated their haul. I had my first ever turkey tray, ran totally by myself and kind of asked my friends and family if they would help. And that 5 basket event turned into over 100, and I raised $12,000 all by myself. So when I did that, I said, wow. I said, okay, let's see what we can do it again. And I did it again. And that next year, matter of fact, that next year, COVID happened. So everything was shut down, but we made it happen with an outside picnic raffle. and I raised 17,000. So I've just been doing fundraising and I love it. I think that you really have to work. I mean, it's hard work, but you can do it. And I go out and I ask anyone for donations for a great cause. A lot of people know what MS is. And believe it or not, every time I ask someone for a donation, someone usually knows someone who has it or they have it. And so, you know, the response has been really overwhelming. Like I said, I do it on my own with the help of my friends and family. Last year was my 4th year, and I think I've raised almost $80,000 in the 4 years. So, but it's a lot of work. So I'm smaller scaling now to like, you can do like the dine and donates. I did a Vera Bradley fundraiser. We do a board and brush, but even if I can do the 26,000, and if I can just do a 400 or 500, I'm still giving back. And I donated to all the different programs. I tell Debbie, I said, whatever programs need it, put it right towards it, because I know everybody, we always need that little bit of help sometimes. And like I said, financially, I could never give back, but I know that I like to, you know, do the fundraising, and I think I'm good at it, and I like to do it. I enjoy it. So I like to fundraise. So that's where I come in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Monica, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, my name is Monica Proctor Wilson, and I live in Southern Maryland. It's called Brandywine, Maryland. I was diagnosed 16 years ago, and I didn't consider this as giving back until Deborah reached out to me, because it's just something I do. I'm a facilitator of 3 support groups, and we meet one support group. We meet every Monday. Another group is family and friends. We meet the first Saturday of every month. And another group is for warrior leaders, and we meet the 3rd Thursday of the month. And it was just something that I did because it felt good to me and it felt good to others to feed each other. My support group is called Speak MS, and it's sharing personal experiences and knowledge of MS. And that's what we do each week. We share personal experiences and giving back to each other. We leave fed, we leave encouraged with each other. Sometimes you have a bad day and sometimes you don't. And we share that with each other and get through it. So it wasn't considered giving back until Deborah reached out to me that I considered that giving back. But I also do activism. And I had the pleasure of meeting Helen in person a couple weeks ago, because we were on Capitol Hill. Being activists, going to the senator's office and their House of Representatives and letting them know that we are here and we want things, we need things. And that because we have MS doesn't mean that we're going to sit in the House and wither up. We are voters and we want things, and we demand that they give us these things also. So it was nice meeting Helen out there doing that together. And just what Helen said, I was going to piggyback off of that. I started off in my support group, just me in my head, laying in bed, and knowing that a support group that I had belonged to hadn't reached out to me while I was in bed for a while. And in my head, I created a group, and I wanted to share personal experiences and knowledge. And the acronyms came together, Speak MS. And I peddled this support group place to place because I didn't have a venue. And as Helen said, it starts with one. And then people started coming and people started coming. And then I had 2 facilities that we would meet. And then COVID came, and they were healthcare facilities, so we couldn't meet there any longer. So we went on live on Zoom. And we now have members in different countries. And it's a way that, COVID was a bad thing, but the best thing COVID did for me was introduce me to people outside of my comfort zone that had MS also, and they need a support system also. And together we meet and we support each other. And that's what it's about. As Helen said, that one person just starts with one, and it keeps growing and growing, and we feed each other. And Helen's meeting is, in person feeding food, but we're meeting on Zoom and we're feeding each other's spirits. So thank you, Deb, for bringing this together.
Thanks, Monica. Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie Pike, and I live in beautiful Gig Harbor, Washington. I like my support groups. I actually know I love my support groups. And these are groups that belong to everyone who attends them. We're equal partners there, and we learn so much from each other. When I was diagnosed, like over 2 decades ago, felt like I was kind of on a journey by myself. And then all of a sudden I stumbled, probably literally, into these other people, and I'm hearing about them talking about their MS, and I'm realizing, whoa, we have a unique designer disease. Everybody's different. Everybody had something, it was either optical, somebody had where, oh, my foot didn't work, oh, my back, my knee, it was so individualized, and I found it so interesting. And the people that join in the groups, they share so much, and you learn so much from each individual. Everybody has something to share. And the groups are, like everybody said here, their groups are a little individual. And I feel like if you try a group, because I think these groups are amazing, and if you try that group and it's not exactly what you're looking for, try another group. Maybe because sometimes people are concentrating. One of our things is my husband likes to greet me with all the new updates every day. Well, it's a take your show on the road. The groups, they absolutely enjoy his updates. They contact him with questions. He's not a doctor. He goes to reliable sources, but we call that our hope. We want to hear about hope for the future. Then we go into, let's say, show and tell. When somebody runs across an item or a product that, oh, wow, this was really great for me. Maybe it'll work for somebody else too. It might be as simple as pen again, where you can help you hold your hand right and write a little better. Or it could go into a psionic neuro sleeve, just wherever it takes us. And we learn so much from each other. And I feel like, wow, I would be missing these people. And we learn about websites that we don't have to go scouring. I know somebody here who might be familiar, like with the MS Dream Center. Fantastic. Megan Weigel, she's now with Mindy at Yoga Moves MS. There's just so many things that, if you just know the people, and they'll start mentioning them. Arts and Medicine, University of Florida, fantastic. People are loving Whitney's dance class, Dr. Gretchen. The list goes on, and we just keep giving.
Thank you, Debbie. Debbie mentioned the MS Dream Center, which is something that I feel just really blessed to have been a part of over the years. Marie and Don. Marie is living with primary progressive MS, and it took her, she was a high school gym teacher, and it took her about 20 years to get a diagnosis before we had meds available to treat. And she's been a part of several clinical trials, but she always had this dream of establishing a place where people with MS could gather and be productive and to give back to the community and be fed by the community and cared for by the community. And about 11 years ago, we had a church in the northwest rural corner of Rhode Island that opened its doors to the group, and we started with about 15 or 16 people. Then we moved into a more metropolitan area that people could come via public transit, and started providing the cost of the transportation to people to be able to join us. And we met in person 3 days a week for about 4 or 5 hours, including a shared lunch hour. And 1 day a week, we had a support group for caregivers or family members. And another day a week, we had an All About Me support group where people shared what was going on in their lives at the moment. And then the rest of the time was taken up either with guest speakers or art classes or exercise classes. And when the pandemic hit, we ended up getting a grant and got the Zoom commercial license so that we could have at least 100 people, or we could have 100 people on a Zoom call. And the MS Foundation gave us space to sort of let people know what's going on. As of a month ago, we now have participants for our programs 6 days a week virtually in, I believe it's 43 states and Canada. So dreaming can produce, particularly if we share that dream. And you know, I wanted to ask Helen after we actually, let me first take a break here and let you know, those of you who are watching this, if you have any questions at all for any one of the panel members, feel free to tick them into the question and answer or the chat. And if you're on Facebook Live, then type it into Facebook and we have someone watching that stream, so they'll tick it into us in the chat. The other thing is, if you wish to ask a question personally, click on the raise hand at the bottom center of your screen. Actually, it's towards the bottom right of your screen, and we will allow you to unmute and ask that question of the group or whomever you wish to direct it to. So I wanted to ask Helen, what are some of the things you mentioned very broadly that when you do advocacy on the Hill, and Monica might also want to speak to this, there are specific things that are important to people with MS. Do you deal with access to medication or accessibility to workspace? What exactly have you done?
Well, we have worked on, for the longest time, accessibility to medication and the costs. And, you know, we've got a chart that's just astronomical, because the therapy that I tried when I first was diagnosed was $10,000 a year. And I thought that was a lot, but now it's $110,000 for the same therapy. So that's one of the things. But the thing that first time was this year that we started was air accessibility for people that have problems getting around and mobility issues. And I didn't know it until we started talking about the ADA has no jurisdiction over air travel. So that's one of the reasons why it's so crazy right now. And people that have, you know, motorized wheelchairs or scooters that get damaged in flight, they sometimes, we had a researcher that was on a panel, and sometimes they make you or encourage you to, if you've got to stop in between, to put your wheelchair through to the last stop that you're going to make. And then when they come and they have handheld or just a hand-wheeled wheelchair. And they sat him at the gate, this researcher that was supposed to be on an international panel. That's what he was traveling to. And they left him at the gate. They told me and they forgot to get him. So that was, and then, you know, just even boarding the people, you know, there's, you know, one of the advocates that came to Washington was dropped when she was being transferred. So, you know, we need to work on that. And this is, you know, we're just dropping in the bucket right now. And that will probably be a 20-year thing that we're going to work on. But hopefully at some point, you know, you'll be able to go to the restroom and, you know, and that goes for people more than just with MS. So that's a big issue.
Oh, thank you.
And also in Maryland, we're fighting right now the step therapy, and in other states also, but the big thing in Maryland is step therapy. And that's when the insurance company who decides, who don't know who you are or care who you are, but want to save money, they decide that you should try this medicine before you try the medication that your doctor may want you to take. And why should you fail? Why should the medication fail you? Because you're not failing anything. The medication fails you. Why should you have to wait till several medications fail you before you get the medication that you and your doctor have chosen that you should take? So that's a big one in Maryland right now, step therapy.
That's wonderful. Because we definitely need that. Not all medications are tolerated by all people, and not all people respond to all medications. So with the step therapy, generally they want you on a lower cost, less effective, generally one of the older medications. And many people will do just fine on those, but many people don't. So our doctors need to be the ones to decide with us what we take. Getting back to something that Helen was talking about with flying, several months ago, I wrote an article for the MS Focus magazine on traveling with a disability. It is up online. The title is Traveling with a Disability, and it is at msfocus.org. And it's in our magazine. So once you get to the web page, click on the little icon at the top of the page for magazine and put into the search bar that article. It's got probably at least a dozen, maybe more links that will help with travel, with booking accessible tours, getting accessible rooms and transportation when you're traveling, how to navigate international travel. So there's a number of things like that. I found for probably 4 or 5 years, I was really quite dependent on using my scooter with travel. And I can tell you that during that time, there were probably only 2 flights out of maybe a dozen where my scooter came off undamaged. And so I give you tips in that article on how to protect your scooter or your power chair from damage, and the little first aid kit you need to take with you for those. So that might help. But yes, we definitely need wider aisles and more accessible bathrooms on planes, and better trained airport staff. So,
And the aircraft is the only public mode of transportation that you cannot take your legs onto the carrier. If you travel by boat, you can take your wheelchair onto the boat. If you travel by bus, you can take it onto the bus. If you're in your car, you can pack it yourself. But the airline is the only place. In your wheelchair, your scooter, whatever your mobility aid is, those are your legs. And the aircraft carriers are the only place you cannot take your legs onto the onto the carrier.
Well, can I tell you that when Helen was talking about that gentleman being left, I had just traveled to Egypt a few weeks ago, and I needed the wheelchair throughout the airport. And they told me, okay, go over to the side and someone will take you. They left me there. And I was waiting and waiting. And finally I said to my husband, can you go, ask them what's going on? They forgot about me. And had my husband not gone up, we would have missed our flight. So it is very, very unorganized, because if I was traveling alone and I couldn't keep going back and forth to them, to the counter or whatnot, I would have been left there. There was no kind of organization with people who needed the accessibility. We had to wait and just pray that somebody came with a wheelchair to take us. And it was just a big mess. And had my husband not been there and asked, hey, where is this? They would have left us. We would have missed our flight. So it's horrible.
And there's numerous stories like that, but what can we do to make the difference? Call your representative and call your senators. They do track these calls, and it helps when they go to vote. So I got the self-help groups that I went to, and we would call the local office, or we would call Washington, and we'd find out, man, we had the most votes that, most calls. So it's on their radar then. So if everybody can call their senators and call their congresspeople, that would help.
It does. I saw that Elaine had put her hand up. Elaine, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Elaine raised her hand. So Deb, does she need to be unmuted by you?
Okay,
Are you able to unmute yourself?
let's see. Elaine, where did you go? Fabia, do you see Elaine with her hand up?
Yes, but I also see that she asked a question in the Q&A.
Okay, Elaine says, what happens to our wheelchairs while we're in the plane?
Surprise.
That's a good question. I've seen mine go up the ramp or up the conveyor belt and into the cargo hold. You should know that some planes do not accommodate large full-size scooters or wheelchairs. So be sure when you're making reservations that you take that extra time and make sure that the carrier is big enough to carry that. If you've got a small commuter jet that maybe has 2 seats along one side and 1 seat along the other side, there may not be room in the hold to take it. And so it may end up having to be sent on a different conveyance, which means that you won't have what you need when you get there. It is packed in with the regular luggage. It doesn't go into any special hold. So you may want to just take some bubble wrap and put your joystick down into the seat and wrap it with bubble wrap and duct tape and just protect those things. Make sure your key is with you and not left on the plane so your battery doesn't get worn down by an accidental tip or brush against or something like that. Let's see, we've got another couple of questions here. Jillian from Facebook. I'm a member of the Multiple Sclerosis Support Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago. The members are not very vocal about MS. How do I engage them to talk about their experiences? Anyone want to take that?
I can take that one, and probably Deb Pike. Awareness. And some people like to hold it to themselves because they don't know how others will respect them or accept them. But awareness is the first thing. And I have a group that meets with the family and friends. Awareness group is what we call it. And we bring the family in so they can see what others are going through. Because sometimes when they see someone else responding to the MS, they accept it from a stranger before they accept it from their family member. They might think the family member is making things up or exaggerating, but when they see it from someone else, they are so accepting. And so invite your friends, even the ones with MS, to a support group. Invite your family to a support group. But the more awareness, the easier it will be for them to talk about their MS. So just awareness.
Thank you. Catherine says, my rollator is sent to the cargo hold. It's kept at the door so that they can grab it faster. Usually the folding wheelchairs or the rollators or folding walkers will be kept right handy that way. But sometimes the wheelchairs, the bigger wheelchairs and scooters don't come off until a little bit later. Natalie asks, how do I find a support group? We have several support groups around the country that are registered with the foundation. And if you want to find out if there's one in your area, you can write to Marcia at supportgroups@msfocus.org, and she will let you know if there's one in your area, or maybe even there is a virtual support group that you might like to be part of, and sort of give you some information on when they meet and how to log in.
I'd like to add to that maybe to your physician's office, they may have a recommendation going online. Zoom has become very, very popular, and you may find a group that they're going to stay in Zoom. And we used to always, when we were meeting in person in one group, the original group that I was in, we had where the support partners would break off for part of it, go into another room, and we'd have part of a meeting, they'd have part of a meeting, then we'd join back together. And that was real helpful. Now I'm going to work on that and see if we can't get that going with the breakout rooms on Zoom, because we're spreading out all over the country, and it's really great to meet people from other places. I'm not trying to nix any live groups at all, but it's opened up a whole new world, the Zoom. And I think people eventually, if you find the right group for you, you get very comfortable. You look forward to talking about things. We, our thing is though that we want you to feel better and more empowered when the meeting is over than when you came in. So be positive. Let's try and find our hope for the future. That's our goal.
Thank you,
Deb,
Debbie.
can I make a comment? I noticed that Deb said something about that your group is, you said something that sparked a thought, because I've had many people say to me, I've tried a support group and they were all Debbie Downers and they didn't like it, so they left and they never looked for another one. But something you said sparked that idea of, if it doesn't work the first time, don't give up forever, because when you have a really great support group, you're going to keep them for years, right? You benefit by it. So I think for those of us that have not experienced something positive with our support group and they ended it, try another one and keep trying till you find one that really suits your needs, right? That you feel good when you leave.
Well, we want it to be where nobody's just sitting there, and the minute that everything goes for the meeting is played, ain't it awful? No, there's good things everywhere. And sometimes we have to dig a little deeper to find them, but that's okay. And my first support group that I went to, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And let's try another one here. Jackpot.
Yeah, I think to some of the support groups, I know when I finally got diagnosed after It was 19 years of symptoms before I was diagnosed. I was in my early 40s and still working full time. And I did get invited to a support group after somebody found out that I'd been diagnosed, and I showed up at the support group, and the only people in that group that were walking were the husband of the leader and their son, who came to help out with refreshments. And so, you know, there were people in reclining wheelchairs, and I thought, you know, this just isn't the place for me. There were only like maybe a dozen people at the most there. So definitely different groups have different focus. Some groups are, we had one person in a couple of the groups that I've gone to that showed up at every support group in the area, and their wife just brought them and dropped them off to sort of be watched while she went to the mall during the support group meeting. And I would just encourage people not to use them as adult daycare centers, but as places where an individual can be built up. We do have, for as Debbie had mentioned, that breaking out into the support partner groups. We do have a virtual support area, which is MS Care Partners Only. It's on Facebook, and you can't have MS to be in the group. You've got to be a care partner for somebody with MS. The group, last I checked, was right around 100 people. And so it's not overwhelmingly large, but when somebody brings a question to be answered, somebody in the group generally has had some experience and can help with that. And also, again, support groups at msfocus.org will give you some resources for that or some guidance for that. Got a couple more questions. Elaine says, yes, I think attitude makes all the difference. It certainly does. And Anonymous said, if I wanted to do a fundraiser, would the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation help me? Debbie, why don't you take Deborah Foreman, take that one?
It's a great question, Anonymous. So I help people. That's part of my job with the foundation. I help people that are interested in doing what we call third-party fundraisers, because the foundation itself is not hosting them. Traci Ceras is the person who is the queen of knowledge and the Energizer Bunny in creating these third-party fundraisers. So I've often said to her, would you like to teach people, you know, because I can help you, I can guide you, I can get flyers made for you. I have you fill out the proper paperwork. I can give you all kinds of ideas, but I can't be there with you, right? So, but I have people who have hosted these before, and they're more than happy to talk to you about it, right? But I'm there. You can call me day and night. We talk about fundraisers. You know, I'm there for your successes and for the ones that you need to do more work on. But yeah, we definitely guide you. So the foundation can help you. You tell me what you're interested in. I can give you ideas, things like that. We're, you know, wherever you live, we're happy to help you and send you things, because every time you do a fundraising event, we're thrilled with that, right? Because the more money that comes in, the more money we can provide for our programs and services that are free. But we also need those events to be awareness events. So it's not just about fundraising, but we want people that are coming, not all of them have MS. We want them to learn about MS. We want them to, no, that's okay. We want them to understand what MS is and what we do as an organization to provide help for those people. So Traci, I send her things every year.
Right, that's what I was gonna say. With the awareness, not everybody, the 250 people who came to my event didn't have it, but Debbie, you sent me flyers and bags and keychains and all these little knickknacks that we gave swag bags out to everyone. So 250 people who came to my event got all this information, and it was nice, because hopefully we've reached out to people that says, hey, if you want to donate or if you want to look into it with, the website, and that was a big help, all those information pamphlets you gave and, and that's nice. But yeah, you have been with me for the past 4 years that I've done all of my fundraisers. And if I ever had a question, I just went right to Debbie. Or if when we did the Vera Bradley and they said, who do we contact? They went right to you. And I think, what did we do? Like $500 that day. So any little bit help. But Debbie, you helped me from the 4 years on. If I needed something, I just contacted you and you got right on it and we did great. So
yeah, it's fun. For anybody that's interested in that, you can respond if you think of it tonight and you would like some information on it. If you respond to the reminder email that you got an hour before the event tonight, if you just respond to that and say, hey, I'd like some information, Bhavia will take that and send it to me and I'll reach out to you as long as you give me a phone number or an email address to reach out to you with. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The other thing that I was thinking as I was listening to people talking is we're not doing so many like Tupperware parties or things like that anymore, but all of these companies that do catalog sales, for the most part, will do fundraisers for you, and they donate a portion of the proceeds of those fundraisers to the designated charitable organization. So sometimes it's only 5% of the profit, but back when I was selling Tupperware in the 1980s, it was about 30% of the profit, or 30% of the cost of items would go to the organization. So if you've got somebody that that's doing a little extra income for one of these home party things, certainly support them by gathering your friends, putting the information out, and contacting Debbie to get the fundraiser set up, and let her know what you're planning on doing, and she'll hold your hand through it.
You know what? I realize that, and I'm sorry if I cut you off, Deb. I'm sorry. I realize that most people are afraid to start fundraising because they think it's going to be big. Like Traci didn't realize how big hers was going to blow up at the very beginning. But that's unusual. Most people start out small and then they feel so empowered. I mean, and I talk about him all the time. He's the age of my son, but there's a young man who decides he's in dental school. And he's actually like the first in his class in dental school. And he decided his grandmother's best friend had MS and he wants to have a fundraiser to honor her. So he did a little walk and he raised money and he went, wow, that was really cool. I raised money for the foundation. It was so exciting for him that he did it the next year. And now he wants to do it every year. And now the dental school said, wow, that's awesome. Maybe we should take this over. So it's becoming bigger and bigger. But the fact that he felt so empowered, and it wasn't a lot of money that he raised the first year, but he felt so empowered that he loved it and he wanted to do it over. So I think we need to concentrate on small, and if it grows, great. But regardless, it's still money that you're donating. You feel good about it, and it helps a multitude of people, the money that you do, and it's awareness. So there you go. Sorry, Deb.
No, I was just going to really kind of say what you just said, that if everybody does a little, it turns into a lot. And if you think your fundraiser is small, but you start adding them up, even if it isn't anything as big as what Traci, is doing, it adds up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And, so please don't think anything is too little.
I think a lot of people ask me, I had a telephone call about a week and a half ago, late in the evening one night, and a woman in my church had just lost her father-in-law, and her niece, who lives not too far from us, had just been diagnosed with MS, and I'd spent some time getting her some resources when she was first diagnosed. And she said, you know, he would have wanted, because you helped her so much with just getting her on track for what she needed, he would have wanted to donate something to an MS organization. What do you suggest? And so I told her a little bit about what the foundation did, and his obituary had a notice for donations to the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. I think sometimes people are confused as to what the different advocacy organizations do. The Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, of the three main organizations here in the United States, really focuses very strongly on patient services, support services, help with equipment, with technology. So more than 80 cents out of every dollar donated to us actually goes directly to people living with MS in the form of support programs. The National MS Society is really big in research, and their majority of their budget is focused on the research arena. So only about 10 cents out of every dollar that's donated to them actually goes to patient programs. But, oh, excuse me, Dave, here you go. My husband had another meeting and he just hit print on the machine and printed out his agenda. Forgotten I was in a meeting, I guess. So the MS Society, National MS Society, that does the walks and the bikes for MS, about 10 cents out of every dollar goes to patients, but about 40 cents out of every dollar goes directly to fund research into multiple sclerosis. The MS Association of America sponsors Can Do MS, which is a sort of a holistic program that helps people living with MS target their strengths, target the gifts that they have to make their life better. And about half of their budget goes into supporting that program and giving people scholarships to do that. So if anybody ever asks you, or they said to you, you know, I know people with MS need help, so I'm biking for MS, whatever, you know, it's probably for the MS Society. And you can sort of knowledgeably say, that's great, because they do so much for research. But if you really want the dollars to go directly to people and make their lives easier, the MS Foundation might be what you want to target your donations to. I think we have, oh, I thought I saw a question in the Q&A, but I guess not. We have about maybe 8 minutes left. Does anybody want to add anything that wasn't covered?
I would like to just say that you are the best person to speak about your MS, and you have gifts, and just find out, you know, because we have an awesome panel, but just find out what your gifts are and think about it a little bit and what you can offer the MS community of yourself. And that's the good way that you can start into being a person who gives to others.
Helping others also helps to relieve anxiety and depression, which is big in the MS community. You know, you do something for someone else and it kind of lifts you out of a place that might not necessarily be the best place. So
You
target
might
it to
even
whatever.
be just the person that makes a phone call to somebody that you met with MS and seemed like they weren't doing great. That what you're doing is making a difference in the world and a difference in the life of that person with MS. So just sharing your story sometimes makes a difference.
And that's what Monica needed when she started her groups, because nobody was calling her.
Exactly. And I was going to say that sometimes joining a support group is about the other person and not always you, because you can give a gift of your story, of yourself, that may help someone else. In the group that I meet with on Mondays, we have someone that is 15 years old, and it hurts our heart that such a baby is now diagnosed with this illness. And we have someone in their late 80s and in between. And everyone can give a gift to someone about a story, because you're not the only one going through this. So you don't have to live this alone, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel by trying to figure out how to do something, because somebody has experienced that, or someone can walk you through these. There's a handbook from everybody that has MS. We all have a handbook. So that journey that you've taken or that you need to go on, someone has experienced it also. So if you can join a support group, if you can find one, Marsha Harris is a great resource with the MS Foundation to pair you up with the support group. She kind of knows what each support group does and has to offer. So she can usually pair you up with the first, second try. You don't have to fail a lot of support groups before you find that one. If you go through Marsha, she can usually pair you up with one. So reach out to Marsha Harris, to the MS Foundation for support group, and join one. And sometimes it's for someone else, and you'll get something out of it, I promise you. Maybe not the first visit. I only require my group members to speak and say hello. You don't have to say anything else, but you're going to say something else. And I have so many people that say, I don't want to join a support group. I joined one before, I didn't like it. And now my group, we meet every Monday, and you should see when the Zoom lights up and I see so many faces, it's so encouraging to me that, hey, we are doing something right. This group is working, because each week on Mondays, faces are popping up, and I love it. I take pictures of them when they pop up because it's encouraging to me. So I get something out of it also.
Right.
Well, one thing, what Monica said is when these groups start getting together, you're going to find somebody mentions like a program that they like maybe a Zumba class at, the Dream Center. And you'll see somebody go, oh, I'll see you there. And they're on Zoom, but they still are creating a little bit of a relationship that they meet, doing other activities outside of the group. So, that is really, it's very nice to see. I run into people and they run into me, and just really enjoy it.
Somebody called today, the office, and I answered the phone, and they said, I forgot where they lived, but she said, I live in an area with no support groups, and I know lots of people with MS. So I hooked her up with Marsha, who's going to talk to her about starting a support group. So she knew that she wanted it, but couldn't find one. So I thought that was pretty cool. And she said, I know lots of people with MS. We just don't have a support group to put it all together. It was nice. Anyway, let's see. Do we have anybody else with questions? This is your opportunity. Traci, I have a feeling that you're going to be joining Monica and Debbie's support group.
I'm waiting for a Zoom thing. We were talking about it the last time, but I don't know how to join the Zoom. So anytime they send me a link, I'll come and join.
You call me, we'll make sure. You call Monica, we'll get it figured out.
Okay, we'll get it. Because I just, like I said, this is my second time on Zoom. So once you like get me on there, I'm more than willing, because like I said, the first time I'm meeting all of you, and it's been wonderful. So, and like you were saying about the depression and the anxiety, that's another reason why I fundraise, because it keeps me out of my house. It keeps me active. I only work part-time. So when I go out and solicit donations, I get to talk to people, to interact with people. And that's another big thing, because it still keeps me going. And that's another reason why I like to fundraise, because it gets me out of my house and gets me to meet new people. I've met so many new people, so many good friends I've met, that it's just, it does wonders. It really does. You just, have to start. That's all.
Yeah.
Somebody had typed a question into Q&A and I see Bobby is answering it. What does NMSEAM mean? National Multiple Sclerosis Education and Awareness Month. So that's every March.
And I will tell you that I've worked for the foundation for 10 years. And every single year we get together, generally before COVID, downstairs in the conference room, and we discuss topics. We come up with a new topic every single year, and everybody's brains are working to come up with something creative, something worthy of helping you, right? Something we come up with this new toolkit every year, really to just help you, and it always.
Toolkits from the previous years. This is this year's toolkit, but the ones from the previous years are also up on our website. So it's msfocus.org and then /MS let's see. Oh, NMSEAM, NSEAM. But there's also, when you get to the web page, there'll be a little blurb on the right-hand side of the page that talks about the March activities, and there's a link in there so that you can see the toolkits online for previous years as well.
Yeah, it's very important for us, the employees, the staff, to try to make this helpful, creative every year, to come up with new information that's going to help the community. So we're quite proud of the product that we come up with. So I'm hoping if you have not, if you are on the list, I think Bobby mentioned this, if you're on the list to already receive your Focus magazine, then you will be receiving a copy of the toolkit this year. If you're not, simply respond to your reminder to this particular conference and just ask, and we'll put you on the list and you'll get both of them. So yeah, I think, let's see.
The Q&A is just a couple of people saying thank you, and you are very welcome. Thank you, ladies, for your contributions and for sort of tweaking our imagination on what we might be able to do to give back to the community. Deb, what's next for us with our webinars?
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our time today. If you've missed any part of this conference, it has been recorded and will be available through the MS Focus Facebook and YouTube channels. You can reply to your registration email for information on how to access recordings, or sign up for our newsletter to learn about upcoming events. Our next teleconference is this Saturday, March 25th at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Time. Our speaker will be Dr. Pearl Werfel, and she's going to be presenting the topic of coping techniques and living one day at a time. She's a wonderful psychologist, and she also lives with MS herself, so she has quite the perspective. Once again, we'd like to thank Biogen, Genentech, EMD Serono, Sanofi, Viatris, Sandoz, and Bristol Myers Squibb for their support of this program. Our sincere thanks to all of our attendees for your participation, and especially to our wonderful panel and moderator. Deborah, Helen, Monica, and Traci, you've no doubt inspired each of us to do our part and in our own way to get involved. As for Cherie, our moderator, MS Focus is lucky to have you and your vast knowledge of multiple sclerosis and everything else that you know so much about. So much, you blow our minds every day. I would greatly appreciate each of you filling out our post-event survey that's going to be available as soon as you leave the conference. Your participation in the survey is going to help us greatly because it tells us what's really meaningful to you. We don't want to be offering you things that aren't meaningful. We really want to get that across to you. So take the moment to fill that out. I'm hoping everybody has a wonderful evening and that you come to see us on Saturday. Ladies, you've been delightful, absolutely delightful. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a great night.